Hello, my name is Clara. If you looked at my life today, you would see a life of order. You would see a life of justice. I am an assistant district attorney. My world is made of hard, clean lines. It is built on facts, on evidence, and on consequences. I spend my days in a courthouse, speaking for people who have no voice. I put bad people in jail. I fight for victims. Before we move forward, show a little love. Please take a second to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment where in the world you're listening from. I love seeing how far my stories travel. My life is a structure, a fortress of law and order that I have built around myself with my own two hands. But my fortress was not built on solid ground. It was built on top of a foundation of pure chaos. It was built over a giant, gaping, empty hole. My life of justice was born from a terrible injustice. It was born from the fact that I have no parents. I have them. They exist somewhere in the world, but I do not have them. They are not people. They are ghosts. They are a story someone told me. They are just the people who left. I have one memory of them. It is not even a full memory. It is a feeling, a snapshot, a faded yellow photograph in my mind. I am 4 years old. I am sitting in the back seat of a car. The seat is cracked and the stuffing is coming out. It smells like sour milk and old cigarettes. I am wearing a little red jacket that is too big for me. The sleeves are rolled up. I am holding a stuffed bear. It has one ear. The car stops. It is a small white house. I have never seen it before. A woman gets out of the passenger side. My mother. She does not look at me. She just opens the back door and pulls my arm. "Get out," she says. Her voice is like a slammed door. A man gets out of the driver's side, my father. He opens the trunk and pulls out a small blue suitcase. The kind with cartoon ducks on it. One of the wheels is broken, so it wobbles. He walks up to the little house. He sets the suitcase down on the bottom step of the porch. He rings the doorbell. He does not wait. He turns around and walks back to the car, fast. The woman is already in the passenger seat. She is looking at her nails. The man gets in. I am standing on the sidewalk, alone, holding my bear. The car engine starts. I just watch it. I am not crying. I am just confused. My little brain cannot understand what is happening. The car pulls away from the curb. It does not go fast. It does not go slow. It just leaves. It goes down the quiet street. It turns the corner at the big oak tree, and it is gone. The front door of the little house opens. An old man stands there. He has white hair and his face is covered in deep, kind wrinkles. He looks out at the street. He sees the empty space where the car was. He looks down at me. He sees the little girl in the red jacket. He sees the wobbly blue suitcase. He does not say anything for a long, long time. He just looks at me, and I look at him. Then he does something strange. He sits down, right there on the top step of his porch. He is a big, strong old man, but he puts his face in his big, rough hands, and he starts to cry. That man was William Jensen. My grandfather. He was a carpenter. He was not a rich man. He was not an important man. He was a man of simple, strong morals. He was the man my parents, his own daughter and her husband, had just abandoned me to. He was the man who did not leave. He was the man who stayed. My grandfather became my entire world. He was my mother and my father. He was my rock. He was the one who woke me up for school. He was the one who taught me how to read. He tried to teach me how to cook, but we burned a lot of toast. He taught me how to use a hammer. He taught me how to be strong. He was my moral compass. He would always say, "Clara Bean, there are two worlds. There is the legal world, and there is the right world. Lots of people do things that are legal. That does not make them right. Your only job in this life is to find what is right, and you hold on to it. You hold on to it like it is the last good piece of wood in a flood." The ghosts of my parents were always there, even if they were not. My childhood was built around their absence. My grandfather never lied about them. He told me they were not ready. He told me they wanted a different life, but I knew what that meant. They did not want me. I would sit in school during the father-daughter dance. I would watch my friends. I would pretend to be sick. At my 5th birthday party, my grandpa baked a lopsided cake. I blew out the candles and wished for them to come back. They did not. For my 10th birthday, I wished for a postcard. It never came. For my high school graduation, I did not even look for them in the crowd. I just looked for my grandpa. He was in the front row, holding a giant bouquet of flowers, crying so hard he had to borrow his neighbor's handkerchief. The emptiness they left. It was not their fault I was born. But it was their choice to leave. That choice was a deep internal wound. It was a cold, hollow part of me that nothing could seem to fill. I grew up knowing every single day that I was not wanted by the two people who were supposed to want me most. When it came time to decide what to do with my life, I was lost. I knew what I did not want. I did not want to be like them. I did not want to chase money. Money to me was a poison. It was the thing that made people leave. It was the thing my parents had chosen over me. I wanted something else. I wanted something solid. My entire childhood I had felt powerless. I was the victim of a choice I did not make. I was angry about it. I was angry that the world was not fair. I was angry that people could just walk away from their responsibilities, that bad people could get away with things, and good people, like my grandpa, just had to live with the pain. I told this to my grandpa one night. We were sitting on his porch watching the fireflies. I was 18. I hate feeling weak, I told him. I hate that the world is unfair. I hate that they could just leave and nothing happened. It was not right. He was quiet for a long time, just rocking in his chair. Well, Clara Bean, he said, his voice slow and steady. You have two choices. You can sit on this porch for the rest of your life and be angry about it. Or you can go out there and build a lever big enough to move the world. The world is unfair. It is full of people who will not do what is right. So you go and be the person who makes them. You go and be the person who balances the scales. That was the night I decided. I was not going to be weak. I was not going to be a victim. I was going to be the person who balances the scales. I was going to be a lawyer. It was a long, hard, lonely road. We did not have money. My grandpa William, my rock, he believed in me. He took his small pension, the money he had saved for his own old age, and he gave it to me for my first semester's books. He sold his old beloved truck. It is just a truck, Clara Bean, he said, handing me the cash. But you are a cathedral. You go build yourself. I did not let him down. I worked. God, I worked. I got scholarships for my grades. I worked as a waitress at a diner from 5 in the evening until midnight. Then I worked as a research assistant for one of my professors from midnight until 3 in the morning. I would go to the law library. I would sleep for 2 hours with my head on a stack of books, and then I would wake up and start reading again. I lived on instant noodles and stale cold coffee. I did not buy new clothes. I did not go to parties. My world was very small. It was just the library, the diner, and my cold little apartment. But I was not just studying. I was building a weapon. I was building myself. I was forging my mind into something hard and sharp and strong. I was not the smartest person in my class, but I was the hardest worker. I was fueled by something they were not. I was not fueled by ambition for money. I was fueled by a deep burning need, a need to prove that I was not a waste, a need to prove that I was not the girl who was left behind. After years that felt like decades, I graduated. I passed the bar exam. It was a 3-day test that felt like it was designed to break me. But I was already broken. I was stronger than it was. I passed. I had my law degree. I had my license. I could have gone to a big corporate firm. I had offers. I could have chased the money just like they did. I could have become one of those people in a glass tower, shuffling paper for rich people. But that was not justice. That was just, as my grandpa would say, legal. I wanted to do what was right. I applied for one job. The job I had always wanted. I got it. I became an assistant district attorney for the county. A prosecutor. I was not on the side of money. I was on the side of the people. I was on the side of victims. I was on the side of justice. My new life was not glamorous. My office was not pretty. It was a small gray box in the basement of the county courthouse. It had a metal desk, a bad chair, and a computer that was 10 years old. I loved it more than any place on earth. It was my fortress. It was my first real piece of power. And I was good at my job. I was tough. I was fair. I was organized. I learned how to build a case from nothing. I learned how to talk to a jury. I learned how to look a liar in the eyes and not blink. I worked with the police. I worked with the judges. I worked with the detectives. At first, they called me Kid. But after I won my first big trial, a tough case against a very bad man, they stopped. They started calling me Counselor or Ada Jensen. I had earned their respect. I had integrity. That was my only rule. Be honest, be fair, be tough. My grandpa, he was so proud, he looked like he might just burst. He had my little ADA business card, the one that said, Clara Jensen, Assistant District Attorney, and he had it framed. He put it on the wall right next to his workbench. He would come to the courthouse sometimes just to watch me. He would sit in the back row wearing his best and only suit, beaming. He would watch me cross-examine a witness. He would watch me give my closing arguments. Afterward, he would meet me in the hallway. "You sure did make 'em play fair, Clarabean," he would say, his voice thick with pride. "You made 'em play fair." I was not the lost little girl anymore. I was 80 Clara Jensen. I was a weapon. I had a place. I had a purpose. I finally truly belonged. My life settled into a new kind of normal. It was a good life. I worked at the courthouse during the day, fighting for justice, and I drove to my grandpa's house for dinner every single Sunday. We were a team. He was my rock. I was his. He was getting older. His steps were slower, but his mind was still as sharp as a brand new saw blade. He was the wisest, strongest, and kindest man I had ever known. Then, about a year ago, the rock began to crumble. It started with a cough. A deep, barking cough that he could not shake. Then a weakness in his legs. He, who had built houses with his bare hands, suddenly had trouble climbing the 3 steps to his own porch. I was scared. I made him go to the doctor. The word cancer is a cold, hard, terrible word. It is a full stop. It is the end of a sentence you are not ready to finish. It was in his lungs. It was fast. It was aggressive. The doctor, a kind woman, told us it was stage 4. They could offer treatment, but it would not save him. It would only buy him a little time. My life changed overnight. My world, which had been split between the courthouse and my small apartment, now became just one place. His bedside. I took a leave of absence from the district attorney's office. My boss, the DA himself, was an amazing man. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Go," he said. "Do not even think about this place. Be with your family. We will be here when you get back." I moved back into my old childhood bedroom in the little white house. I cooked for him. I read to him from his favorite books about history. I helped him bathe. I held his hand. We reversed our roles. He had spent his life taking care of me when I was helpless. Now it was my turn. We had 6 months. They were the hardest, the saddest, and the most precious 6 months of my life. The man who had been a giant to me was shrinking. He was becoming frail. But his spirit was still so strong. We talked for hours. We talked about his life. We talked about my life. We talked about the ghosts. I asked him if he was angry at them. At my parents, he was quiet for a long time. He was looking out the window at the big oak tree he had taught me to climb. "I was angry for a day," he said. His voice was soft, like old paper. "The day they left you. I was so angry I thought my heart would just burst. And then, that night, you had a bad dream. You woke up crying. You came into my room. You crawled into my bed. You were so small. You grabbed my finger, just my one finger, with your whole hand. You looked up at me, and you went right back to sleep. Just like that. All the anger, it went away. There was no more room for anger, Clarabean. There was only room for you. I got the best deal in the world. They gave away a diamond. And I got to keep it," I cried. He just held my hand. "Do not be sad," he whispered. "It is almost over, and I am so, so proud of you. My AD, my prosecutor, my girl, you did it. You really, really did it. You stood up. You are not that little girl on the sidewalk anymore. You are a giant, Clara. You are the strongest person I know." He passed away on a Tuesday morning. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. I was holding his hand. He took a breath. And then he did not take another one. He just went to sleep. And then I was alone. For the first time in my life, I was truly, completely, terrifyingly alone. The emptiness my parents had left, that was nothing. That was a small hole. This was a canyon. This was the man who had been my entire world. He was gone. My sun, my moon, my stars, they all went out. The funeral was simple. It was full of people I did not know. Old men in worn-out work boots who called him Bill. They were carpenters he had worked with for 50 years. Neighbors I had only waved to. The entire police department sent a delegation. My boss, the DA, was there. They all came up to me one by one. They told me he was the best man they ever knew. I knew. A week later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, Mr. Henderson. He was an old, kind man with a white mustache. He was my grandpa's lawyer and his oldest friend. He was the executor of the will. I was just there to sign the papers for the house. I was in a fog. My grief was so thick I could barely see. "I am so sorry for your loss, Clara," he said. "William, he was one of the good ones. He loved you more than anything in this entire world. I know, I whispered. I loved him too? Now, he said, putting on his glasses. We have to discuss the estate. The will is very simple. He left everything to you. The house, his personal items, his old truck. I know, I said. That is fine. I want to keep the house. I cannot sell the house. Mr. Henderson looked at me over his glasses. He smiled, a big, slow smile. Clara, he said gently, there is more than the house. A lot more. Did William ever talk to you about his finances? I was confused. What finances? He was a carpenter. He had his pension, and his small savings from the carpentry shop. It was not much, I know. I helped him with his bills. Mr. Henderson leaned back in his big leather chair. Clara, he said, your grandfather was a carpenter, yes, but he was the wisest man I have ever known. He was not rich from his work. He was smart. Do you know the land his little carpentry shop was on? The one by the old highway, out by the airport? Yes, I said. He sold it years ago, when I was in college. I remember he used some of the money to help me pay for my law school books. He did, Mr. Henderson said. He told you he sold it. He did not tell you who he sold it to. He sold it to a commercial developer for a very large sum of money. A very, very large sum. He never told you, did he? No, I whispered. My heart was starting to pound. He never touched a penny of it, Mr. Henderson said. He lived his simple life. He kept his old truck. He kept his little house. He did not want to change. He did not want you to change. He took that money, all of it, and he gave it to me. He told me to invest it. For Clara, he said. For her future. For 50 years, Clara, that money has been growing. He saved it all for you. He called it your shield. He said, I want to make sure she is always safe. I want to make sure no one can ever hurt her again. He slid a document across the desk to me. It was the final valuation of the estate. I looked at the number at the bottom. $2,700,000. I could not breathe. It was not real. It was a typo. My grandpa? My simple flannel shirt-wearing grandpa? He left it all to you, Clara, Mr. Henderson said. His note is very clear. It is attached to the will. Would you like me to read it? I just nodded. I could not speak. He cleared his throat. To my granddaughter, Clara Jensen. You were never a burden. You were my greatest blessing. You were the joy of my life. This is for you. You earned it, just by being you. Be smart, be strong, be happy, and always do what is right. I love you, Clara Bean. I did not feel happy. I did not feel rich. I broke. I put my head on the desk and I cried. I cried for the man who had given me his whole life and who, even in death, was still finding ways to take care of me. The next few weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and a grief so thick I could barely breathe. The money did not feel real. It was just a number on a piece of paper. I was still living in my grandpa's little white house, surrounded by his flannel shirts and the smell of sawdust. I was on leave from my job, and my world felt quiet and empty. Mr. Henderson, my grandpa's lawyer, handled the formalities. He filed the will in probate court. He explained to me that this was just the process. The court had to officially validate the will and give me the authority to manage the estate. He warned me that this was the hard part, because filing the will meant it became a matter of public record. A last will and testament? The name of the deceased, William Jensen. The name of the sole heir, Clara Jensen. And the total value of the estate, $2,700,000. It was all there, in black and white, for anyone in the world to see. I did not think anything of it. Who would be looking? My world was my grandpa, and he was gone. I was wrong. The scent of money travels fast. It travels silently, and it woke the ghosts. About a month after my grandpa died, I was sorting through his old photographs at the kitchen table. A mail truck stopped. The postman did not just put something in the box. He walked up the steps and rang the doorbell. He was holding a thick, cream-colored envelope. It was certified mail. It required a signature. My heart pounded. Certified mail was never good news. It was what we used at the DA's office to serve a subpoena. I signed for it with a shaking hand. It was not addressed to my courthouse office. It was addressed to Clara Jensen at my grandpa's house. The return address was from a law firm I had never heard of. Barnes, Sneed, and Associates. My hands were cold. I opened it. I had to read the first paragraph 3 times before the words made sense. We represent Mr. Richard and Mrs. Diane Miller. My parents. My biological parents. I had not even known their last name, Miller. It sounded so plain. so normal, so unlike the monsters in my head. The letter went on. It stated that their clients, Richard and Diane Miller, were formally contesting the last will and testament of William Jensen. They were suing me. I felt the floor drop out from under me. I ran to the bathroom and was sick. They were back. After 22 years of absolute, complete, total silence, after not sending a single card, a single letter, a single "Are you alive?" text, they were back. I called Mr. Henderson. I was crying so hard I could not speak. I just read the words from the page. His voice on the other end of the line was grim. I heard him swear under his breath. "I was afraid of this, Clara," he said. "This lawyer, Mr. Barnes, he is a shark. He is a bottom feeder. He reads the probate notices, looking for big estates with any possible crack. He must have found them. He must have tracked them down and told them they had a winning lottery ticket. And now they are coming." "But they cannot!" I yelled. I was not just crying anymore. I was angry. "They abandoned me. They have no right. He was not. He was mine. They signed a paper." "I know, child," Mr. Henderson said. "But in court, right is not always what wins. They are making a legal claim, a very twisted one. They are saying that as your biological parents, they are his next of kin by blood, and that you are not. It is a weak argument, but their main claim, it is an ugly one. They are saying you used undue influence on your grandfather." I went cold. "What? What does that mean?" "It means," Mr. Henderson said, and his voice was full of anger, "that they are going to tell a judge that you are a cold, manipulative lawyer, that you used your legal skills to trick a senile old man, your grandfather, into disinheriting his real family and giving you all the money. They are going to paint you as a villain, and they are going to paint themselves as the poor, loving family who were cheated." I hung up the phone. I was not hurt anymore. I was not sad. I was enraged. This was not about money. This was about his name. They were calling my grandpa, the wisest, strongest man I ever knew, senile. They were calling me, an officer of the court, an assistant district attorney, a thief. They were trying to stain his memory, and they were trying to attack my integrity, my profession, my entire life. They had not just come back for the money. They had come back to destroy me. The first step was a pre-trial deposition, a meeting. Their lawyer, Mr. Barnes, had requested it. He wanted to examine me. He wanted to see how I would hold up. Mr. Henderson tried to shield me, but I said no. I would be there. I was an ADA. I had conducted hundreds of depositions. I would not hide. I walked into the cold, gray conference room at Mr. Barnes's law office. Mr. Henderson was with me. He was carrying a heavy briefcase. I was carrying nothing but my purse. And on the other side of the long, polished table they sat, my parents, Richard and Diane. I had not seen them since I was 4 years old. I did not recognize them. They were complete strangers. They were in their late 40s. They were dressed in flashy, new-looking, but cheap-quality clothes. My mother, Diane, had big, bleached blonde hair and too much jewelry. Her nails were long and fake. My father, Richard, had a thin, mean little smile and wore a suit that was too shiny. They looked weak. They looked like they had been chasing money their whole lives and had never caught it. And they were staring at me. They were staring at me with a cold, greedy hunger. They did not see a daughter. They did not see a person. They saw a bank. They saw a $2.7 million obstacle. Their lawyer, Mr. Barnes, was a large, sweaty man in a suit that was too tight. He smiled at me. It did not reach his eyes. "Hello, sweetie," he said. He did not even look at Mr. Henderson. He looked right at me. "I am glad you came. This is just a formality. We can make this all go away. My clients here, Richard and Diane, they are very reasonable people. They are very forgiving." My mother, Diane, spoke. Her voice was high and sharp. It sounded like a piece of metal scraping on glass. "That is right. We do not want to be here. We loved William. He was a wonderful man, but he was confused at the end. He was sick. We know he would have wanted us, his real family, to be taken care of." I did not say a word. I just watched her. I watched her lie. "So here's the deal," my father, Richard, chimed in. He leaned forward. He was trying to sound like a powerful man. He just sounded like a bully. "You are just a young girl. You do not know what to do with that kind of money. It is a burden, a big, scary burden. We are here to take that burden from you. You sign the inheritance over to us, the money and the house, and we will be generous. We will let you keep, say, $50,000. for your time, and we will not press charges. We will not have you disbarred for what you did." I just stared at them. Disbarred. They were threatening my entire life. They were threatening my career, the career I had built from nothing, the career my grandpa had been so proud of. They had not come to negotiate. They had come to threaten. They had come to extort. They had no idea who I was. They had not done their homework. They saw a young woman in a simple black suit sitting next to an old small-town lawyer. They saw a victim. They saw the girl. They had no idea they were sitting across from a prosecutor. Mr. Henderson put his hand on my arm. He was about to speak. I put my hand on his, stopping him. I leaned forward. I looked at Mr. Barnes. "You are a shark?" I thought. "I am a shark eater." "Come on, little girl," Mr. Barnes said, smiling. "Do not be stupid. I am a shark. You are a minnow. I will tear you apart in court. I will prove you are a manipulative, cold-hearted thief. I will prove that old man was crazy. I will paint a picture of you that will make the judge sick. By the time I am done, you will not just lose the money. You will lose your little law license, too. 50,000. It is a great deal. Take it." That was it. That was their fatal mistake. They had not just insulted my grandpa. They had not just tried to steal my money. They had just officially threatened an officer of the court. They had threatened an assistant district attorney. They thought I was a minnow. They had no idea I was the entire ocean. The day of the hearing arrived. I felt strangely calm. The grief from my grandpa was a low, steady ache, but the rage had cooled. It was not a hot fire anymore. It was a block of ice. I was not a grieving granddaughter today. I was a prosecutor. And these people, my parents, they were not family. They were defendants. They had lied. They had threatened. And now they were going to face a judge. I put on my best suit, the one I saved for closing arguments. I tied my hair back in a severe bun. I did not wear makeup. I looked like what I was, a lawyer. I walked into the county courthouse. This was my home. This was my fortress. I knew every bailiff, every clerk. They all nodded at me as I walked past. "Morning, Ada Jensen," one of them said. "Good morning, Bill," I replied. I walked into courtroom 3B. It was not my usual courtroom, but I knew it. I knew the judge, Judge Harrison. I had argued in front of him before. He was tough. He was fair. He was a no-nonsense, respected senior judge. He had a reputation for being tough on lawyers who wasted his time. I knew this was a good thing. I sat down at the defendant's table with Mr. Henderson. He looked nervous. I just looked at my hands. Then they walked in. Richard and Diane, and their shark lawyer, Mr. Barnes. They looked so confident. They were laughing about something. They sat at the plaintiff's table. They were whispering and smiling. They looked like they were at a party. This was a game to them, a payday. My mother, Diane, saw me. She looked right at me across the room. I met her gaze. I did not blink. She smirked. A mean, cruel little smirk. Then she leaned over to my father, Richard. She whispered something in his ear, and she rolled her eyes at me. A slow, dramatic, look at this pathetic, silly girl roll of her eyes. She thought I was nothing. She thought I was a joke. I watched her. I filed the moment away. I filed it under evidence. The bailiff banged his gavel. "All rise," he said. The Honorable Judge Harrison presiding. We all stood up. Judge Harrison walked in. He was a man in his 60s, with gray hair and a face that looked like it had never smiled. He sat down in his big chair. He looked at the papers on his desk. He looked tired. He hated these kinds of cases. Probate court was full of greedy, sad families fighting over scraps. "Case 819C, the judge said. His voice was a low rumble. "The matter of the estate of William Jensen. Caldwell versus Jensen. Are both parties present and ready to proceed?" "We are, Your Honor," Mr. Barnes said, his voice smooth as oil. "We are, Your Honor," Mr. Henderson said. "Very well," the judge said. "Mr. Barnes, you may begin with your opening statement." Mr. Barnes stood up. He buttoned his tight suit jacket. He smiled at the judge. "Thank you, Your Honor," he said. "Your Honor, this is a tragic case. A case of a loving, trusting family. My clients, Richard and Diane Miller, who were cruelly cast aside. And it is a case of tragic, classic elder abuse." He walked toward the judge's bench. The deceased, Mr. William Jensen, was an old man. He was confused. He was lonely, he was senile, and in his final vulnerable days, this young woman, he turned and pointed at me. "This attorney," he said the word attorney like it was poison. like it was a dirty word. This attorney, Clara Jensen, used her legal cunning, her cold-hearted skills, to manipulate him, to poison him against his loving, biological family. She tricked him, she coerced him, and she stole an inheritance of $2.7 million. An inheritance that rightfully belongs to my clients. Judge Harrison was listening, looking down at his papers. He was frowning. He looked up at Mr. Barnes, then his eyes. They moved to me, to the defendant's table. He squinted. I was not looking at him. I was looking at my parents. I was watching their fake, sad faces. The judge looked back at his papers. He looked at the name Clara Jensen. He looked at me again. I finally met his gaze. He froze. It was not a small pause. It was a complete stop. His whole body went rigid. His hand, which was holding a pen, just stopped. His face, all the color drained out of it. His mouth fell open just a little bit. He was not looking at me like a defendant. He was looking at me like he had just seen me. The entire courtroom was silent. I could hear Mr. Barnes breathing. My parents were confused. Their lawyer was confused. They did not know what was happening. Judge Harrison just stared at me. He looked at me for 5 long, silent seconds. He held up his hand, a slow, shaking hand. "Counselor," he said to Mr. Barnes. His voice was tight. Stop talking." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The judge kept staring at me. He took off his thick glasses. He leaned forward. His voice was not a rumble anymore. It was a whisper of pure, stunned disbelief. "I am sorry," he said. He was not talking to the lawyers. He was talking to me. I know the face, but the name on my docket is Clara Jensen. From the district attorney's office." My parents froze. Their smug smiles evaporated. They looked at their lawyer. They looked at me. Their faces were a picture of pure confusion. I stood up, slowly. I buttoned my suit jacket. My voice was clear and strong, and it echoed in the silent room. "Yes, Your Honor, Clara Jensen. I have been with the DA's office for 3 years. The judge leaned forward even more. His eyes were wide. He looked at me. He looked at the file. He looked at my parents, who were now starting to look pale. "Wait," the judge said. His voice was loud now. You are Ada Jensen?" The shift in the room was electric. It was like a lightning bolt had hit the building. My parents, Richard and Diane, were frozen. Their mouths were open. Their faces were a mask of pale, ugly confusion. Their lawyer, Mr. Barnes, looked like he had been punched. His jaw was slack. This was not a naive, grieving girl. This was not a minnow. This was Ada Jensen. This was a prosecutor. This was a lawyer who had argued in this exact courtroom. A lawyer who worked with this exact judge. They had not just brought a lawsuit. They had brought a lawsuit against an officer of the court. Judge Harrison's entire demeanor changed. The tired, bored look was gone. His face was now a mask of cold, controlled, judicial fury. He looked at Mr. Barnes, the shark, who now looked like a very small, very scared fish. "Counselor," the judge said, and his voice was like ice. "Step forward," Mr. Barnes stumbled forward. "Are you telling me," the judge said, his voice low and dangerous, "that you are accusing a serving assistant district attorney, an officer of my court, of felony undue influence and fraud? Is that the case you are bringing before me today?" The lawyer was stammering. He was visibly sweating now. "Your Honor, my clients, they were not aware of her position. We thought—" "You thought?" the judge boomed. "You thought you would come in here and slander a member of the bar? You thought you would slander a member of the district attorney's office? I do not care what your clients were aware of. I care about what you are accusing. I have known Ada Jensen for 3 years. Her integrity is beyond question. Her work is exemplary." He then turned his fiery gaze onto my parents. They both shrank back in their chairs. "And you," he said, pointing a shaking finger at them. "You waltz in here after abandoning this woman for 22 years, a fact that is not even in dispute. And you dare to accuse her of manipulation? You dare to slander the name of William Jensen, the man who did the job you ran away from? The man who raised this incredible woman while you did. What, chased money?" The judge sat back. He looked at my parents with pure, undiluted disgust. "This case is dismissed, with prejudice, which means you can never ever file it again. This is the most malicious, the most frivolous, and the most disgusting lawsuit I have ever had the displeasure of seeing in my courtroom. This is not justice. This is an extortion attempt. And it is over. My father started to stand up. But Your Honor, sit down, the judge roared. You are not done. He looked back at Mr. Barnes. And counselor, he said, as for you, for filing this trash, I am sanctioning you and your entire firm $10,000 to be paid to the state. Furthermore, I am referring your clients, Mr. and Mrs. Abandonment, he actually called them that, to the district attorney's office, to Ada Jensen's colleagues, for a full investigation into perjury, conspiracy to commit fraud, and filing a false document with the court. You threatened to have her disbarred. You threatened an officer of the court. Let's see how your colleagues feel about that. My mother let out a small, high-pitched scream. My father looked like he could not breathe. They were in real, actual legal trouble. They had not just lost. They had been destroyed. I stood tall. Mr. Henderson next to me was beaming. I looked at the judge. I gave him a small, respectful nod. He saw me. He nodded back, just once. A look of deep, shared respect. Then I turned. I did not look at my parents. I did not look at their pathetic, weeping faces. I walked out of the courtroom. I walked past them, past their ruined, greedy plans. I walked out into the hallway and I did not stop. I was free. My grandpa's memory was safe. His legacy was safe. The next morning, I went back to the little white house. I took a bouquet of flowers, the ones he loved, the ones we used to plant together. I drove to the cemetery. I walked to his grave. It was a simple headstone under the big oak tree, just as he had asked. I sat on the grass. The sun was shining. It was quiet. I put the flowers down. We did it, Grandpa, I whispered. We made 'em play fair. They did not win. They did not even come close. I sat there for a long time, feeling the warmth of the sun. The cold, empty space my parents had left was still there. It would always be. But it did not matter, because the rest of me, all the parts my grandpa had built, I was a cathedral, and I was strong enough,